What's going on, everybody? Christian Ballard, Ballard Sports Media, coming at you with a video today using some StreamYard. We're going to share screen and we're going to try to do this thing right. I almost went live for this one, but I figured I'd upload an actual video for it. But looking at this, before they play, Michigan versus Alabama, Texas versus Washington. Have they met before? I think in recency, we could both agree that yes, they have. You know, Texas and Washington, in fact, they played last year in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, Texas. Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian go head to head. 27-20 was the final score of the game, and Washington was able to win. Let's go ahead and actually talk about this. I almost said rivalry, but it's not really so much a rivalry. It's just this playoff game. So these are not, by the way, my predictions. I'm not here to predict, but I do want to go back before we go forward into predicting and picking these games. Even though we did a live stream last night on the 7th where we had gone ahead and picked our bowl games. So let's go ahead and look at Texas and Washington here. This is Winsipedia. And again, I don't know how valuable this site is. I don't know if it's legitimate. So you guys could let me know. I mean, I've looked into Alabama, and I know Alabama by the numbers pretty much. So, I mean, everywhere I've looked for them, and Winsipedia seems to match up. So I'm just going to take it for what this site says. So looking at Washington and Texas, this says no ties. Washington on a one-game win streak, but Texas leads the series 3-2. Let me zoom in just a little bit here so you guys can see that. Before last year's game and the bowl that they played in, the Alamo Bowl, Washington had won 27-20 last year. But you got to go back to 2001 in San Diego, California. That must have been some sort of bowl game. Rick Neuheisel was the Washington coach. Mac Brown just getting started at Texas. And Texas won the game by 4 points, 47-43. Before that, they had not met since 1997 in El Paso, where Washington had won the game 14-7. Don James was the head coach, and Fred Akers for Texas. So Don James for Washington that year, Fred Akers for Texas. They actually have never tied. You go back to back, almost a home and home here. 28-10 and 75 for Texas in Seattle. Don James, Darrell Royal, of course, who the Texas Stadium is named after. In Seattle, Texas wins in 1975, 28-10. You look at 1974, where it all began in this rivalry, quote unquote, 35-21. Texas won in Austin. Jim Owens was the head coach for Washington, and Darrell Royal, of course, for Texas. That was in Austin, Texas in 1974. So we see Texas kind of splitting it up a little bit. But Washington does not have a series advantage, but a recency advantage as they won the game last season. So looking at Washington and Texas, I'm not ready to make my pick or prediction yet outside of last night, which I pretty much locked it up. I mean, come on, Washington. I'm pretty much rolling with Washington and Alabama for the national title. Let's just call it what it is. I'm ready. Let's go. But it wouldn't surprise me if Texas won this game. It wouldn't surprise me if Alabama were to lose to Michigan. Nothing in this playoff should or probably will surprise us unless these games are not close. So again, looking at the history going into the playoff game in the Sugar Bowl, Texas leads 3-2, no ties, 600% win percentage for Texas, and 400 for Washington. But Washington kind of has an upper hand, as in the last time they met. They met in the Alamo Bowl for last season. And Washington, of course, won that game 27-20, a really good game last year. We can only hope for the best in this year's game, which I honestly would expect a shootout if I had to be honest. Now let's look at Michigan and Alabama. We want to take a look at what these two teams have done up against each other, and we'll go ahead and share the screen here. This is from Winsipedia as well. Alabama has won the last two, going back to the 2020 Citrus Bowl with Mac Jones and Najee Harris and company before the 2020 National Championship run. And then 2012 in the Cowboys Classic in Arlington, Texas, Michigan and Alabama faced off there. A.J. McCarron. You had Brady Hoke for Michigan. You had Nick Saban for Alabama. 41-14 was the score there. And again, 35-16 in Orlando a couple years ago before Alabama went on a national title run. 2000, they had met. Tom Brady was the quarterback, and he won in a shootout for Michigan, 35-34. I don't even know that place in Florida. I've lived there growing up, by the way, in Florida, but that was in Lake Lucerne. I hope I'm saying that right. Mike DuBose was the coach for Alabama at the time. Lloyd Carr was the head coach for Michigan. Not going to say too much of a legendary guy for Mike DuBose, but Lloyd Carr did pretty good for Michigan, I believe. And so he helped get the job done in a bowl in 2000. 1997, they met in Tampa in what I could assume that must have been the Outback Bowl. Lloyd Carr and Mike DuBose go head-to-head there, 17-14 Alabama wins. Go to the very beginning of this series, 1988 in Tampa. Glenn Bo Schembechler, and Bill Curry go head-to-head. 28-24 the final score for Michigan to get the first win of the series. The largest margin of victory was that game, 28-24 for Michigan. Their longest win streak is 1. The largest margin of victory for Alabama was 41-14. In 2012, the longest win streak that they've had is to win in 2012 and 2020, the last two times they've met, and they have won both of those games. You look at these numbers, and we'll get back to Washington and Texas. I apologize for not coming down here and talking about it. Alabama is first in a lot of categories. Michigan is first in one or two categories as well. If they're not first, they're second or third in a lot of these categories. You look at their all-time record, 1,002, 353, and 36 for Michigan. That's a 73 win percentage. They are third of 131 FBS teams. They are second behind Alabama in claimed national titles at 11. They are third in conference championships at 45. Alabama all-time record is second at .734. 965, 336, and 43 is their all-time record. They are first in claimed national titles. We claim 18 titles at Alabama. 34 conference championships. They are 7th in conference championships. Again, I don't know if you want to take Wenzapedia's word for all this, by the way, but I'm just going off what I'm reading here. I would think hitting the 1,000-win mark that Michigan would be first with an all-time record. I mean, I guess maybe they're going off win percentage, but still. I mean, so you can see on this screen here, by the way, wins all time. Okay, so that's a little different than the all-time record. They're talking about the win percentage. Michigan's third, but in all-time wins, 1,002, they are first. Okay, so saying that makes more sense to me. I apologize. Alabama is fourth, has 4 Heisman winners. They are 5th in that category. Michigan is 6th in the category with 3 Heisman winners. 918 weeks in the AP Top 25 poll. They finished 2nd. That's for Michigan of 131. Alabama is 4th in weeks in the AP poll with 872. Weeks at number 1, Alabama leads all that according to Wenzapedi. 140 weeks at number 1. They are ranked ahead of everybody. So, and Michigan is 13th in that category at 35 weeks. 51 first-round draft picks, 7th there for Michigan. Alabama is 3rd in that category with 79 first-round draft picks in the NFL. And I could go through all of these, but again, as you see by the numbers for each of these bowl games, going back to Washington and Texas, by the way, Texas ranks 3rd with 58 bowl games, 948 wins all time. They are 4th in the nation. They have a bowl record. They're 25th. Hey, you still made the top 25, right, Texas? 55%. So, and they're 8th in conference championships. 2 national titles claimed for Washington. They're 27th. Compare that to Texas. They are 16th with 4 claimed national titles for the Longhorns. All-time record, Washington ranks 22 at 773, 464, and 50. Whereas Texas is 7th. It's not really close in that category between the two teams, 948, 391, and 33. That being said, there's a lot of history between both of these games. The Rose Bowl with Alabama and Michigan. Obviously, the Rose Bowl has given us a lot of great games. The Sugar Bowl has given us a lot of great games. Both have been played for national titles in years past before the BCS and everything. So, but this is to reach a national championship. Who do I have winning? I've yet to do my picks as far as previewing the games in depth, but we did do a pick 'em last night, and I got to say it's Alabama-Washington for the national title. I want to hear from you guys on this one. If there's any numbers between these two programs, Washington and Texas, and then Michigan and Bama, maybe if you want to talk about the matchups between Bama and Texas, Bama-Washington, Washington-Texas, which we talked about that one today, but like Washington and Michigan or Texas and Michigan, the games that could be played in the national title, we will try to talk about that when we get there. But if you guys have any information on these 4 playoff teams and the numbers and the history behind them, please let us know in the comments below. I love you guys. God bless you. Hope everyone's having a good holiday season so far. Let's celebrate my birthday and 4 years on Ballard Sports Media this Saturday night around 10:30. I love y'all. Peace.